Oh, hello. We're going to wait and see if a few more people arrive, and then we are going to get started. Hey, the capybara. Okay then, I think we are going to get started. Hi Ray. So yeah, we're back with more Banner Saga today. And let me know if we have any audio or issues or anything else weird happens. We're still trying to figure out all of the little glitches and kinks with streaming, but we're going to try and do 2 more chapters today, so chapters 3 and 4. Oh, hey, looks like we did not save out the last time, so we're going to finish this. Awesome! I'm glad to hear that the echo went away. I was doubling up on things. Okay then. We're in another fight. This is gonna go badly. I am very short supplied because some of my people just died. So we're gonna see how this goes. So yeah, looks like it did not save at the end of last stream like it should have. So then... Yep, I'm gonna fix that, turn myself up, turn down the game volume. There we go, that should help. So yeah, we're gonna see how this goes. It did not save at the end of last stream, so we have to redo the end of this, and unfortunately it did not give me the same event, which means I have now lost 2 of my units. So this is gonna be tough. Yeah, Mogan and Hogan were the 2 who just died, because it didn't give me the event to let me into the city. So I had to just go in the old-fashioned way, and they tried to attack the gate, and they died. But still, we do what we can. We move on. And that guy's gonna luckily not do anything too mean. So, I actually had a... yeah, I know, they made bad decisions. I'm not really surprised. At least Egil is still here for now. I expect he'll probably end up getting killed later, because Egil has like a 4% chance to survive this game. Oh boy. Oh, thank God for that though. Hi Amish, good to see you. And... cool. You chose to attack. Then we're going to do this. Which should basically kill him. Yeah. I know, my first playthrough I did not end up saving Ale either. My second time I looked up how to do it, because screw that. Best Boy is going to live. And we're just gonna have Alette run away. Because Alette doesn't want to do this. Oh boy. Yep, Rook's gonna die soon, that sucks. What are my options here? There we go. This should still be okay. Nope, Rook's dead. Inconvenient, but not critical. Well, that's gonna just wait, because fuck it. And yeah, then we're actually gonna try and do something in this stream. The goal, as you can see from the title here, is actually to see what counts as a saga here, and what does the Banner Saga count in the type of narrative it is, does it have similarities to the actual sagas? So I'm curious to those of you in chat, when you hear the word saga, as the title of this game has and as the marketing for it actually says, when you hear that word, what do you think of? So yeah, I'm just running through. In the meantime, I'm just going to run through this part here since we saw it on the end of the last stream. This guy, Eke, is going to let us in. And we'll join him, because that is better. Okay, now we're back to chapter 3, where we get to join our Varl companions again. If you'll remember from last stream, Vognir died, so now we're going to play as Halcon, his retainer. Cool. In the meantime, we're getting some answers, so thank you guys. To Capybara, I think of an ancient story, preferably from the Nords. Brother Jerome, Saga gives the idea of a story, a poem, etc., of some kind of journey. And the young Odman says a prose story in the Icelandic style. So from that, yeah, that is pretty useful. Important thing here with how saga is used in the technical sense is that, well, it is just the Icelandic word for story. However, when it's used in context here, it specifically means a prose narrative written in Old Norse from about the late 12th century into the 15th century. So these are stories that that were written down after the end of the Vikings, but they often tell stories about earlier on. So there are a few different types of sagas that are kind of relevant to this. The first one are the group called Icelandingasögur. Sögur is just the plural of saga in Icelandic. So this first genre is also called the family sagas. The family sagas are mostly date from the 13th and early 14th centuries that they tell about early Icelanders. So they date from the settlement of Iceland in the end of the 9th century. Iceland was supposedly discovered in 874. Or, sorry, yeah, 874 according to Icelandingabok, but the earliest archaeological evidence dates from 871 plus or minus 2 years. So, what we're doing here is, or what those sagas deal with is specifically the struggles of early Icelanders, up through the conversion to Christianity in the year 1000. The Icelandingasögur are often compared to novels, like they are really, really similar to novels. Leander, the German word saga does just mean story, but the term is used a little bit differently academically in the German. Yeah, it does literally translate to story or a thing that was told, but it's used a little bit differently to refer to folklore, where the Icelandic word has a really quite specific definition. So yeah, in game here, we Haukon's in charge now that Vognir's dead, so we're going to talk to Ubin here before we take off. But yeah, those sagas are the most quote-unquote realistic of the saga genres, more or less, but they're probably based on prose narratives. And thank you, Osman, for the follow. So those prose narratives are based on oral traditions, though the extent to which they are is highly variable. And so the current thought academically is that these are mostly fictional, but they deal with the struggles of farmers in Iceland, uh, and their struggles for power in this very realistic, grounded sense. There's very few wild adventures. If they go to the court of Norway to go uh, on expeditions, go raiding, that's part of the narrative, but the main story will tend to follow in Iceland farmers competing for influence, and usually two farmers feuding. The longest of the sagas of these sagas cover several generations of people, so something like Egil Saga or Njal Saga will cover a whole bunch of different generations of study or of farmers in Iceland, and their their feud often through those several generations. The next one here that I think is more relevant to the Banner Saga is the legendary sagas, or Fornaldarsögur. The the Fornaldarsögur are get their name from an 1832 edition, I believe, by a Danish person, Carl Christian Raff, called the Fornaldarsögur Norderlanda, which uh, the name tells you the two things you kind of need to know. Hey, Orm. Uh, the These are old stories of Fornaldur is ancient age, so stories of long ago in the north. So those are all characterized by taking place before the reign of Harold Finehead, starting in the 930s, and take place in and around Scandinavia. So the most famous of those is, of course, Volsunga Saga, the story of Sigmundur and Sinfjotli, and of his son, of Sigmundur's son Sigurd Faustapani, and his trials and death, and then the burning of Attila the Hun. So those ones tend to be a lot more extravagant. They were written down later than many of the uh, Iceland saga were, and so they tend to deal far more in what we would call fantasy. The trolls and giants and going off to far off lands tend to occur much more in the Fornaldur saga than they do in the Iceland saga. This feels to me potentially more useful for talking about this game, since obviously the Varl here are some kind of giant race, and that being said, this I actually don't have the answers here yet. I'm actually still looking at this. Full disclosure, I'm giving a conference paper about this in July, so this stream is definitely partly research. So we're going to take a look during this stream, just in the back of my head, uh, to try and figure out, are there things here that are comparable to narratives within the sagas? And are there anything in here that is really going to be useful for us talking when talking about this, and really is it a saga? Related to that, obviously sagas being like uh, the sagas being a lot like novels. They're very linear, and you know where the ending is long before the ending gets there. In fact, a common thing in the sagas is that you'll frankly just say someone's going to die tragically when they are introduced, and then they'll die 50 chapters later. Thank you, Moment18, for the follow there. So yeah, I don't have the answers here, but we're going to take a look at that and see how this story kind of tries to fit into the saga model or tries not to. And for those of you who are just coming in, hello. My name is Adam, and this is Ludo History. We're playing Banner Saga, which is a game developed by Stoic, an American company based in Texas. And so I have training as a Scandinavian historian, and so we're going to be taking a look through this and talking about history and narrative in the game and in the medieval Scandinavia. Hi, Lord Sapien. Uh, yeah, and Kane 101 wants to know more about the Swedes and Finns being depicted as other in the sagas. So we'll talk about that more because this is something that we're going to see a lot of dredge, so talking about the other is going to be pretty easy to do. In the meantime, yeah, in the game they're talking about why the sun has stopped moving, and if you saw earlier, the gods all died. We're going to talk about the gods more a little bit later in the stream too. And by the way, I also have to kind of chuckle here. No more black monks. I live in Iceland, and so it's 5:21 p.m. and it is nearly full dark. The sun's gonna kind of hang out just barely below the horizon for a little while longer, but for the most part, yeah, all the streetlights are already on. My lights are on in my room so I can actually see, and it's already pretty dark, so I strongly sympathize with the desire to have no more darkness. Woohoo! Having done that, let's go talk to Murder. Anyway, yeah, Swedes and Finns. So, in most of the sagas that we have of all genres, both the sagas that tell the history of kings, sagas that tell the history of Iceland, and sagas that tell about legends, all tend to be written in Norway or Iceland. There's a few from Denmark, there's a few from Sweden, but for the most part we're looking at Norwegian and Icelandic stories. So, in them, obviously, Sweden has, and really all the Scandinavian countries have had a really, really long-running rivalry. So, for these stories, especially ones that are biased in favor of Denmark, they have a tendency to tear down Sweden and then even more so Finland, because Finland is so far away and the Sami people were so foreign to Icelanders, obviously Sami being speaking a non-Indo-European language and trying to be having a very different cultural yeah, obviously I agree with that. 5 hours is about right for this time of year. But yeah, the Sami people having their own culture and their own language, they were seen as very alien to Norwegians and Icelanders. So you'll see, especially like Finns, will be renowned for being magical. In one of the Icelandic sagas, so these are the realistic ones. Was it that style of saga? So the saga of the people of Vansdalr, which is in northern Iceland. Uh, in that saga, oh, some people from Lapland get brought in since Ingemundr the Old is the lives in Norway, and with the King of Norway, Harald Finehair's blessing, he's going to move to Iceland. But to figure out where he's going to move, he gives them a coin. Takes some Laplanders and gives them a coin and says, "Tell me where I'm supposed to be." And so they go into the sauna for 3 days and don't come out. And they're like, "Just don't disturb us for 3 days and we'll let you know." And then they describe to him the location where his coin is now buried in Iceland. When he finds his coin, that's going to be the place where he should settle. And so he does, and he goes all across northern Iceland naming a bunch of places before eventually getting around to just before the Westfjords. And there he finds his coin, and he sets up a big temple there and becomes the most powerful person in that region. So it's really that's in one of the realistic sagas. We have spirit traveling Laplanders dropping coins around. Uh, so that's just like one case, and we'll mention more in some of the legendary sagas in a moment. Lord Sapien, the Banner Saga, this game is definitely not. This is not even set in Scandinavia. This is set in an unnamed continent that just bears very strong similarities to Scandinavia. So, in fact, so this game is obviously like completely fictional. It's not even an adaptation explicitly of any historical sagas. But hopefully, the thought here is that maybe since it claims to be a play your own Viking saga, there's going to be some similarities we see with the historical sagas that we can talk about. Mooncake, why do these guys have horns? These are the Varl. These are not humans. These are a giant race that in the game will occupy a 2x2 grid, so 4 squares. The reason these guys have horns, actually, I do know this, is that the developers in Stoic originally were like Vikings. They have horned helmets. And then quickly realized, no, they don't. So their compromise was that in their made-up giant race, they were going to give them horns to reference the horned helmet Vikings without needing to give any of the actual people or any of the actual humans in the game horned helmets. Okay, I think we're going to keep going, so instead of reading the rest of those dialogue options, we're going to get going for the sake of getting to the fun parts, which are the battles. Let's take a look at who we've got. And in the meantime, the relationship between the historical sagas and the skaldic tradition. So, this stream seems to be throwing a lot of names around, so something that's going to be really important here is actually, yeah, we'll do that. So, the sagas, as I mentioned, are all vernacular prose narratives. Some of them actually include poetry, but poetry is divided into two different types. There is Eddic poetry, i.e. Poetry like the kind found in the Poetic Edda. It's very descriptive. The other type is skaldic poetry, which is a much more complicated and a much more uh, developed kind of poetry. Uh, Epic poetry tends to be longer narratives, while skaldic poetry can tend to be single verses in some cases, often dedicated to praise of someone or some kind of funeral song. So the relationship between the skaldic poetry and the sagas is that some of the events in the sagas are really closely based on events described in skaldic poetry, especially in the King's sagas. So, however, some of the Icelandic saga also contain skaldic poetry. That's something called a prosimetrum, where prose and poetry get mixed. Skaldic poetry does sound a lot like prose when you're not used to it, but it has a really complicated internal rhyme scheme, so once you get used to the flow of it, it does actually read in a very different way than Icelandic prose does. It's also bloody hard to translate. Let me just... I've tried translating it. I've tried translating a single verse from the saga of Saint Olaf, one about his praise, and it was a nightmare, to be honest. The word order is so convoluted, and the language is so flowery that there are some poems that we simply don't know how to translate. But some skaldic poetry, such as that found in Banner Saga, is actually attributed to a saga hero. So the skaldic poetry is actually a lot older than any of the sagas they're in. And so, like, Banner Saga has, I think, it's like 30 poems that are attributed to Egil Skallagrimsson, the hero of that saga. But those poems all date from the period when Egil was alive in the 10th century. And we know that from linguistic features because it's so complicated. Skaldic poetry preserves linguistic features that the language later loses, and so we can date them with surprising confidence. So they can form the root of some of the stories in the sagas. That being said, there are some cases where we know for a fact the skaldic poetry was written by someone else other than who the saga says it was, and the person writing the saga just plucked out the poetry and put it in because it seemed right for that event. So obviously, if a saga says that someone recited this poem, we can't take that perfectly seriously, but the skaldic poetry does in some cases inform our understandings of saga heroes, and is sometimes straight up included in the sagas. That was a very convoluted answer to your question, Ottoman, but I hope that helps, Ottoman. So yeah, we're learning a little bit about our social structures in the game here. And so Håkon, because he was the Kender, or I mean that's a made-up word, but it's close to ideas of kinsman. And so Håkon's going to be in charge of the Varl all the way to Grofheim. Hey, Bella. Håkon is rather reluctant about this. He does not want to be king. Ludin, who currently does want to, but we'll see. Luckily, he gets to be a much better character by the end of this game, and by the end of all 3 games. Okay, Mooncake. We'll go through that again. I'll try to answer it a lot. So to answer your question, before we talk about Ursa, because we get to talk about magic when we talk to Ursa, Uh, a saga, when I'm using it, specifically refers to Icelandic or Norwegian, usually, so Old Norse, we'll just say. Prose narratives largely written between the 12th and the start of the 15th century. So this is really quite specific, and obviously there are a lot of uh, there's a lot of sagas and there's a lot of variation between sagas, but that's kind of the overarching definition here is prose vernacular narratives written in Scandinavia in Old Norse between the 12th and the 15th century. And Leander, we have mainly, while we don't have many Swedish or Danish stories, and Finnish, we have some from later, and obviously we have some in Old Swedish. I'm not familiar with the exact size of the uh, Old Swedish corpus, because East Norse is not something I've had a lot of practice in, or practice in studying. But part of the reason we have so many Icelandic stories is that Icelanders wrote a whole lot down, and so we really don't know the exact reasons for why they wrote so much is still debated. Uh, but Icelanders wrote way more than anyone else did. And in fact, they were really like internationally famous for having really good memories and for writing lots of things down. In what is it? Saxo Grammaticus's Justa Danorum, so his history of the Danish people, he actually says he's using Icelanders as their sources because they have cultivated their memories so well that they remember these the events that happened in their past way better than anyone else does. And so they wrote a lot more down and a lot more survives from Iceland than from other places. One reason possibly some have survived from Iceland is that there's been less demand for that material to be used for other things. Uh, so, like in Sweden and Denmark, obviously the resources that go into making a manuscript, all the cows that go into that, can go to other purposes. And in times of conflict, obviously manuscripts got destroyed, things happened, but in Iceland, there's only ever been one case where a foreign invader landed in Icelandic soil, and that was in the 17th century, and that was over just like 2 weeks, where some people from Morocco raided in Iceland. Past that, Iceland has never been attacked by a foreign country, and so there's been a lot of time to cultivate copying of sagas and lots of time to produce new manuscripts, and very little demand to be doing other things with your time. So I hope that answers. I don't have like an exact answer as to why the East Norse corpus is so much smaller. But yeah, and yeah, I mean that's referring to the Turkish raid in 1627, which was what it's just wild. I'm currently reading a book on it, and it's absolutely crazy. Especially since for the first group of raiders that landed in Iceland at that time, very few of them were native Moroccan. Uh, they were corsairs, but their leader was Dutch, and a bunch of the mercenaries that came in to help the raid were English. So yeah, that one's just wild. But that's several centuries later than what this game's looking at. So, in the game now, we're going to talk to Ursa, one of Ludin's retainers, and supposedly a witch. Uh-huh. So we're mostly worried about the flaming arrows here? Yeah, Leander, that's pretty much right. In the winter, through Icelandic history, there's been a phenomenon called kvöldvaka, or evening telling, or wake. It's literally wake, but in the same sense of how like a funerary wake is basically just staying up all night. Uh, so that kvöldvaka was literally like them telling stories in their turf homes when it's dark and you can't do anything because the wind is trying to blow away your house. So, in that time, obviously, there's also a really prominent tradition of copying manuscripts and passing them around to your neighbors, and all gathering around to read from the manuscripts and then tell other stories and chime in and make edits and keep going. Make poetic narratives out of the prose narratives called rímur or rhymes. So there's this really long tradition in Iceland of storytelling that helps promote the copying of manuscripts. And so in the 19th century and in the early 20th century, uh, there were some people, farmers, who literally the entire time that they weren't working in the fields, they were copying down manuscripts. And so we have literally hundreds of paper manuscripts of copies of texts that, for the most part, still exist, but uh, for some of them are only found in paper copies due to these people copying them down. Unfortunately, some fires throughout the period has meant that paper copies are sometimes the only thing that survives. A big one in the 17th century in Copenhagen destroyed a lot of manuscripts. Yeah, we're gonna briefly. So Ersa here seems to be a really talented archer, which is perfectly respectable in Iceland. Not so much for a female to be an archer, but archery itself was perfectly respectable as a heroic thing to do. And she seems to be one of Ludin's bodyguards. And she claims she's a witch. Witches, magic in the Nordic Middle Ages is really quite complicated, but and there's some new books coming out on it soon, so unfortunately I don't want to talk too much about that right now, but it's worth mentioning that a witch in the sense that is implied here just doesn't exist. That idea does not exist in medieval Scandinavia. There are sorceresses, and they do sometimes are enemies, but I would not really say that this particular connotation that is given by witch really is something that exists. And yeah, so we just, in the meantime, solved issues of the good way. This is diplomacy at its finest. Yeah, Mooncake asks, were the Nordic peoples more literate than the rest of Scandinavia? Or than the rest of Europe? Kind of. Certainly, like, there's a strong tradition of secular literacy. There's... yeah. There's a strong tradition of secular literacy in Iceland. Obviously, Snorri Sturluson himself, who wrote the Prose Edda, is a layperson, never had like a monastic university education. However, I would not say that the percentage of people who could write well in Iceland was very high, certainly not in the Middle Ages. We have cases of like royal letters coming to us from Banner Saga, or the history of the feuds of the 13th century. And so, really, like the percentage of people who could read and write is probably single percents. The big thing that happens with those letters is that they come in and then they be read publicly. So someone could read, probably like the bishop at Skalholt maybe would read that, or one of his underlings, or the actual chieftains would write. But for most of the tenant farmers, most of the slaves in Iceland, so the overwhelming majority of the circa 50,000 people who lived in Iceland in 1250, we're looking at probably 5 to 10% of that is fully literate, with a little bit more having some basic training. In the meantime, yeah, we're going to look at large-scale conflict here. This is the first time we've seen that in this game. So yeah. We have 501 dredge versus 400 varl and 185 fighters. We're going to charge them. Mooncake, not purely for fun. Writing has important purposes for communication and for preserving history, and they would then read it to each other. So, like, a good example of one of the reasons you might write something down is the prose edda itself, because we actually know quite a lot about why it was written. Obviously, we know the prose edda today as for its mythology. It's one of our main sources of information on the it's one of our main sources as to the mythology of the medieval North, and certainly it's probably our most coherent source for them. However, when Snorri was either dictating that or physically writing that in the 1220s, he actually meant it not as a mythological treatise. In fact, he explicitly says, do not believe these stories were real, and do not believe anything anyone else says about them. Christian people don't do that. What he meant it for, though, is a treatise on poetics. In fact, that's probably what the word Edda means, is it probably translates best to poetics. So, by writing that down, he is capturing a moment where he sees a lot of young people who are not getting the training they need to properly create skaldic poetry. They don't understand the kennings, or complicated ways of saying people's names, or identifying objects. And so he's writing that as a way to help make sure that people know what's going on and know what those kennings all refer to, what good examples of poetry are, and training people to be poets. So this is a highly practical thing. It's not just because he can. And so yeah, I put myself in a dangerous situation here in trying to make this work. This will be fun. So yeah, kind of the point there is that this is a really important in that it was done in order to really try and help train people and help explain why things are the way they are to them. As such, we can see extrapolate from that writing things down is primarily for practical benefit and not nearly as often for purely entertainment, though certainly that was sometimes the stories were written down for that. There's lots of other questions of like ideology and how and why things are written the way they are. So really like a whole lot. I'm trying to think of what the article is. Or actually I have a book on it that I'll recommend. Let me grab the title real quick. Here we go. So this book is called The Reality of the Fantastic by Hans Jakob Orning. And so the full title is The Reality of the Fantastic, the Magical, Political, and Social Universe of Late Medieval Saga Manuscripts. Well, it was published in 2017 in Odense. So, oops. That book kind of takes a case study of a certain manuscript of some sagas and argues from them some of the meaning reasons you might write things down. And thank you, Annabella Kua, for the follow. So yeah, hope that answered your question, Mooncake. There were ideological reasons they were writing it down. It was not always just for fun, though sometimes that definitely was the case. Ish, I think I want to keep him back for a while. So we'll just rally to get Falcon more off. That's gonna hurt. Crap. We're gonna slag this area. Actually, we're gonna slag there. And now Halcon's gonna have to focus on breaking people's armor. And Velep, the big book on magic, which I just don't have access to, is probably, oh crap. What's its name? Give me just a moment here. Magic in the... Why can't I remember its name? It's by Stephen Mitchell. Where it is? Witchcraft and Magic in the Nordic Middle Ages by Stephen Mitchell. It's probably the big book for that. That's out right now. And there's one coming up soon that's a translation of a French book that is also very relevant. I know who's working on that. Margaret Cormack's working on the is editing the translation of that. So, this is the case. weird. This guy's doing spooky things. Cool, I can kill him though. There we go. I think he was calling for reinforcements. Obviously I don't like that, so... I played badly. I played this very badly. It's a good thing you guys aren't coming here for good gameplay, because I'm sorely lacking in that. Going clockwise, so if I hit this guy, I'll hit that guy too, and I'll do like no damage to either of them. It'll be fun. Yep, and we're in trouble. Lots of trouble here. Yep, and there's Gunnulf goes down. Thundering Impact. Crushes that guy. And yeah. Let's see, what other things do we have talking about here? Actually shouldn't have done that. Crap, because now that guy gets to go again. And luckily I'll win this fight, no problem, I just don't feel good about it. Yeah. So, you know, since we're fighting some dredge, let's go back and talk more about the, ways in which all the ways in which people, otherized each other. So, specifically with that I mean, like, let's talk about Swedes and Finns, and why they get so frequently, treated as other. So I talked about that a little bit earlier with the Laplanders. And then in that style of saga. Another example of that comes from the manuscripts that Hans Orning talks about, which all contain a group of sagas about the island of Pratnesta in Norway and the owners of that island. So there's like a series of 4 of them, more or less. And Kettle Saga Hangs, Grim Saga Lovenkenna, and Orvar Odd Saga, I believe, are the three big ones. I don't remember what he says the 4th one is. Still, that's not so important. In all of those cases, at least part of the story takes place in Finland, but there's a mix of Finns and Trolls that occupy the same geographic area, and really are kind of comparable. In Grim Saga Lovenkenna, for instance, like, the main person, the inciting incident of the story is when Grim's fiancée, who is the princess of Sweden, I think, gets transformed into a troll and vanishes mysteriously due to her evil stepmother, who is the queen of the Finns, I believe. I don't remember if... What I don't remember there is if she's Finnish or if she's supposed to be an elf. In either case, she is certainly from farther east than Sweden, and is very evil. In the end, she gets stuffed into a burlap sack and stoned to death and thrown in the river. This is regarded as a good thing. Okay, we're gonna squish these guys. Yeah, admit it's brutal. The sagas are pretty violent, and not always in ways that are kind to female characters. Another legendary saga, Pro Saga Kraka, uh, does this also has an elf slash Finn in it, and she is also evil and ends up being the reason why King Hrolfr at the end of the saga dies. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of violence in these sagas, and in that way, something here where they're constantly fighting is really very saga-like. So since one of my guys is injured, I think I'm going to take... Actually, I've only got one injured. I've got a spare person. We're going to charge again. And we're going to promote people, because that's actually really important. I'm just going to crank this guy's shield break, because that's what he's good at. And we're going to pull you off, we're going to drop in Percy, and we're going to promote Luden too, since we've got the material for it. What do you guys think? What should I improve his stats on? I think maybe I go for 1 morale, 1 strength, and then we go in. Too late, Ray. I actually don't like doing shield armor break on Luden because he's so much better at stabbing people in their where they're weak rather than trying to armor break. Because obviously, like you can see, Mogar has a max of 4. Luden only has a max of 2 there, so he's never going to be very good at it. His damage is so low. What do you offer? You are just knocked out. Okay, this will be fine. This is fine. Oh, Leander, sorry for not answering your question there. Do we have statistics like taxes? I don't think from Iceland. I don't know that what we have is particularly reliable. Our best account of like people comes from Landnama book, which is the Book of Settlements, which talks about everyone's land claims going clockwise around the island, or no, anti-clockwise around the island, I think. Oh gosh, that's a lot of dredge. This'll be fun. Okay. Hopefully he goes late. If I can smash him. One, two, three, four. Yeah. We're gonna do it that way. Yeah, so it should be way farther forward. Okay. Of course you go first. No. Yep, and that's what I was afraid of. He's gonna smush my guy. But dude. Unfortunately, that means Luden's pretty well useless for the rest of this game. But he'll still be able to do a few things. Like Impale. Knocks target. Back. Maybe I don't do that. Maybe I just have him move to where he's more protected. Okay. But yeah, while Noah Book might be the closest answer of Leander, the I'm trying to think of what other ones there may be. I don't think there's a whole lot around. Who's next? Okay. So there's some weird junk in the shrine order here. That's as far as actual tax records, yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head. That doesn't mean they don't exist, it's just not something I have a lot of experience looking at. I'm just gonna rest you, because you want to come forward. And... okay. I think we maybe just... Luckily Mugger goes before Halcon, so that's fine. And we're gonna slag out this area. Hopefully, yeah. That's what I was hoping it would do. So we can protect our people even though he took strength damage there, that's fine. Just music, we're gonna do that. Good, Harkon didn't take damage this time, so who's coming up next? From there, he's fine. He did hit hard there, though not really that hard. We hit for 2. Yeah, actually, we're gonna do that, because he's gonna get a go before anything matters too much. Just a normal attack. And here we go, we're going to try and be very lucky in how we do this. Yep, I missed. I was afraid that would happen. Break some armor, and off we go. Annoying. Okay, this is exactly the situation I like being in. So we're going to wipe these two off the map. Yeah, we can do that, and then we can basically wipe both of these guys off the map. And then he's gonna get hit, but that's fine. I don't super care about these guys, so let's see. Is your exertion? Your exertion's 2. I like that. Okay, these guys are just doing very weird things. Advance into the corner. What bring the pain do? Okay, that doesn't... don't super care about that. So we're just gonna attack this guy. Okay, I don't care about this. Yeah. So notice I'm actually, strategically I'm trying to keep people at low health here, because they're just going to kind of chip away at my armor in a way that's not particularly scary. So if a bunch of them at very low strength is not very threatening to me. Because yeah, see, he just doesn't hit hard enough. Like I said, he's gonna hit Hakon for a little bit. And yeah, we're just gonna kind of keep going with this fight. Does anyone have any other questions or thoughts about what's going on here? Otherwise, I'm going to try and get back on track and talk more about Finland. Because yeah, that's kind of the main similarity I'm seeing at this point is, well, the level of violence is very Norse, very much in line with the sagas, but then in some ways the style of the violence is also very well, in that the biggest, most prominent battles seem to be mostly against seem to be mostly against the this very stylized other, in a sense that is familiar from Norse from the saga material, particularly against Sweden. But I guess for larger scale battles, that is something we can look at meaningfully. I have no choice but to kill him, unfortunately, but that's okay. And Tarkans continues to take pain. So I guess one type of larger scale battle that's, or larger scale event that's relevant is it comes to us from Banner Saga as just an example of the kind of it's just like that. Hakon's gonna take a bit of a beating, but that's okay. Yeah, in Ragnar Saga, this is a good example of the Swedes being really weirdly evil. Like, not just antagonistic, but outright, like, peculiar in how evil they are. This is a story that has a demonic cow in it for some reason. But comes to us from Ragnar Saga. So the tale of Ragnar Lothbrok and his offspring. So Ragnar was originally supposed to get married to a person named... Yeah. Sorry, I am all over the place trying to focus on the battle and this. I'm still not great at the whole talking while working or talking while playing thing. So, Ragnar was supposed to get married to the daughter of the King of Sweden. He instead decided to get married to the child of Sigurd Hrafnsbani and Brynhildr, which is a fair choice. Like, fair play to him, I would probably have made the same choice, given just how prestigious being married to the child of Sigurd and Brynhildr would be. But in order to do that, he actually... Cool. That finally worked. We're gonna pull back there, get more renown. Still, he agreed to do that and then met Alstis Brynhildr out there. and then backtracked on his promise to get married to the Princess of Sweden. This made the King of Sweden very angry, and so he, in return, when it's really quite difficult, especially when I'm playing badly. But he told, when Ragnar sent the sons of his first marriage to Sweden, his first wife had died at this point, which is why he was looking for a second marriage in the first place. But he sent his sons of his first marriage to the King of Sweden as ambassadors, and they got killed. The King of Sweden just killed them. They tried to get into a fight, but their troops were overwhelmed by terror because the King of Sweden sacrificed to a demonic cow whose bellows instilled terror in everybody else. Yes, it is exactly as wild as it is. There's actually two demonic cows that show up in this narrative, but we think that that's a case of the scribe just kind of reiterated the same narrative because he could. But yeah, he's super pagan. Obviously Ragnar and all of his sons were before the conversion to Christianity. They were all pagan. The King of Sweden is super pagan, and instead of worshipping the Aesir, just gives sacrifices to this cow. And her bellows instilled terror all across the line and broke up the shield wall and caused Ragnar's sons to get killed. So, Ragnar's sons, by his second marriage, at this point he's got 4 of them. You may know them from the Vikings TV show: Ivar the Boneless, Feedsack, Björn Ironside, and Sigurður Orminauga, Snake in the Eye. The other one was actually in Norway, but we think, yeah, that's just the saga writer just copied the Swedish narrative and put it in Norway for some reason. It's mysterious. But, we need to camp for a day because I've got injured people. So, while we're resting, I can also take a look at my new people, which will be good. There we go. So yeah, they definitely just went for it, and they got really mad for obvious reasons, because Ragnar's sons by his first marriage and his sons by his second marriage got along really well, and so they took it very personally when his sons with his first marriage got killed. And so they were like, let's go beat up the Swedish. Because Ragnar's kingdom was in Denmark, though not any like play. It's somewhere in Iceland, but past that, the place is left unclear. But yeah, so they go off and they're like, yeah, let's do it. So they actually go to take ships across while... Oh yeah, Saxo ignores all of this. Saxo is boring and a coward. We're just gonna crank up Moger's armor because he's my frontliner. But yeah, let's see. Keep going from there. Yeah, also if you notice here, contradicting Ursa saying she is a witch, Ursa is labeled as a siege archer, so just as a side note, her claims to being a witch are dubious at best. Good, which is good, given that, yeah, the whole double toil and trouble witches aren't a real thing in medieval Scandinavia. Anyway, back to the story. They take sea across, while their mother takes a troop of cavalry and rides around the Baltic, right, all the way around the Baltic through Finland to get them from behind. Like, Aussie Brynhildar daughter is, or Ausleik, sorry, Ausleik Brynhildar daughter is scary. Uh, but yeah, so they do that, and Ivar is like, I know the god demonic cow, I've got it covered. He was unfortunately cursed to have no bones in his body, because when Ragnar and Ausleik were first married, Ausleik was like, hey, just like don't sleep with me for like 3 days, and otherwise my kids are going to turn out weird. Ragnar ignored this. So Ivar, as a result, has no bones in his body, hence his name, Bane Lois Boneless. Yeah, it is just... exactly. No bones. In actuality, well, he probably had some kind of the historical Ingvar, which is the older form of the name. He appears in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, so probably was a historical figure. Likely he had some kind of still a congenital defect, but that basically gave him really severe osteoporosis, and so he actually had to be carried around on a litter everywhere because he couldn't support his weight on his legs. So some kind of congenital bone defect actually like ruins the structural integrity of his bones and gave him the name. So he's actually a historical figure. Ragnar is not, but his sons are. Anyway, in this narrative, he's clearly fictional because the way he deals with the cow is he tells his men who are carrying them on his shield to fling him at the cow, and he soars through the air and then gives the cow the people's elbow and smashes it into, just turns it into a pile of ground beef. Quite like the saga actually describes it as probably being magical because it seemed like he soared through the air impossibly far and then became incredibly heavy and crushed this cow, which the cow's name is actually Sybil. Just as by the way, the cow's name is Sibylla, which is quite literally a translation of the Roman name Sybil, Cirrus. So there's a lot to unpack with that lots of people have spent lots of time doing. But yeah, so he fucking gives the people's elbow to this cow and allows his brothers to carry the day. I will never get tired of how utterly whack the Norse legend can be. Also, yeah, should have shown, we got a new person. Where is he? There he is, Gress. This guy's not super good, but he's nice and balanced, which is helpful for us. So someone else who can... Exactly, you got to yeet me at that fucking cow. And they did, and it worked, and full power to him. Further, but Ragnar Saga, it should be pretty clear, is borrowing... Here we go. We're gonna get another fight. We're going to take things a little bit easier for us. Yeah. Still, that kind of becomes clear how Ragnar Saga 1 is just completely wild. 2 takes on a lot of classical traditions, because actually Ivar at the end of the saga pulls does the same trick that Dido of Carthage does, where he says, hey, I get as much land as a cowhide will cover. So cuts the hide in half, or splits the hide in half widthwise, on the very narrow side. So it's double its size, and then cuts that into strips and surrounds the place with it. Ragnar Saga claims that that's the origins of the city of London. Clearly fake, but that's okay. Well, so clearly fake, but the other story about the Ragnar Sons, the Fouter or short story of the Ragnar Sons, says it's York, which is much more plausible than London. Still, it should. The third thing to take away from that is that Sweden is weird. Sweden is just weird and super pagan and worships cows. And I'm sorry if anyone in chat is from Sweden, but like, it's just you can't deny it. Oh god, these guys are scary. Holy shit. Okay. One, two, three, four, five. Should work. Yep. The music in this game is so good. Like, I can't get over how always awesome this music is. Even if these are the sad ones. Let's not leave losing enemies up. That sounds like a bad idea. Okay, one, two, 3, 4. That should work. Hopefully you don't go far. We're actually going to put Gris over on this side, because I don't like how much strength this guy has, and I prefer to go at him first. But am I unlucky? Come on, tell me I'm lucky. I'm unlucky. This is no good. This is really bad, actually. I screwed up my positioning. So Hakon's gonna take a big ass hit to the face, but that's gonna just mark him for the rest of the game, the rest of this fight. So this is gonna be rough. What are my options here? Unfortunately, I can't do anything before he gets another go, but still, we'll do this. We'll go battering ram, I think, to force him back. And he occupies the square. That's helpful. Okay. Now, we can start chipping this guy down as quick as possible, because we are going to need it. Hopefully, this guy's going to be able to make it, because otherwise we're going to continue to be in trouble. Okay. Weird, why would you attack him? Okay, good. He can make it, which means that we could crush this guy. And yeah, I guess something we could talk about here is the idea of there being friendly and unfriendly giants. Because clearly, like, we've got Varl, and we've got these giant dredge as kind of existing in opposition to each other. Part of this, I think, has to be attributed to pure and simple wanting to yeah. In the really simplest terms is trying to keep this as balanced, but I think there is something genuine here as well regarding just oh boy, I am in such a bad position. And yeah, he's going to attack him, which is no good. Still, clearly there's an idea that some of these giants are good, some of them are bad, that is unrelated to their size. So let's actually talk mythological and the mythology size. The Jötnar are, well, it's definitely less clear if they're associated with foreigners, in the sense that you see with, like, as I mentioned, with trolls, but they're definitely associated with, there still is, without a doubt, some level of an association. Oh boy. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. Where was I? Words are really hard, I'm sorry. So were giants associated with foreigners in the size in the way that elves and trolls were? Giants tend not to appear in these sagas. The Jötnar tend to be a purely mythological thing, or their other status remains kind of unclear. Like, they can appear in other ways, but it's kind of murky as to the ways, the exact mechanisms by which they work. Oh gosh, Earth is done. Like, there's a possible giant that appears in, I believe it's, what? In Njal Saga, I think it's, someone who may be a giant appears, but remains kind of very largely mysterious. Yeah. Nope, that doesn't work. Okay, we're gonna have to kill him and then eat that hit, which sucks. Okay, like, there is someone who may be a giant who walks out of a, what is it, walks out of a mountain to give a prophecy, and then proceeds to, do basically nothing else. He exists, the issue with that is that it's actually unclear whether he's supposed to be, like, Odinic, or if he's supposed to be truly a giant, but he shows up and gives a prophecy to one of the main characters, and then that is it. He basically foreshadows the end of the saga by pointing out every person who's going to die in this character's expedition. Because at that point in the saga, this guy, Flosi, is going to burn the title character, Njal, and his family alive in their home. Because they insulted him, and that was definitely a proportional response. So on the way there, he gets a dream where a giant-seeming man, I believe his name is like Jarngrimr, or Irongrim, and just points out all the groups of people that are going to die in the entire rest of the saga as a result of this burning. And he's like, so Rosie wakes up and tells it to his friend, and his friend is like, you know, we should just not tell any of them. We're just going to pretend that dream didn't happen, even though we both know it's prophetic and definitely going to happen. We're just going to keep going with this plan, and it'll all be fine. And probably important to note here is that two of the people who definitely survive are Flosi and the friend he is talking to. So Yeah, uh, that's one possible like giant type figure, but it's definitely not super clear. However, trolls and Jotnar can kind of serve a. I know, right? Uh, Trolls and Jotnar can serve in another kind of context. In Grettis Saga, uh, there's one point where the title character, Grettir Ásmundarson, has been outlawed, and he was an outlaw for 19 years, the longest lived outlaw in Icelandic history. When he Uh, there's one point where in one winter he has to flee up into central Iceland, into the wild mountains up there, to survive. And he comes across this valley that I believe is inhabited by trolls, but it may be giants. I haven't read that part of the saga recently, so I don't remember for sure. I don't have. I'm not gonna flip through my 2 copies right now in order to try to find it. Uh, Either way, they're very friendly, and they shelter him for the entire winter, and he actually hit the daughter of that family falls in love with him. And very, about what you'd expect from this kind of very legendary, very, uh, like, very much a folk story type narrative. But in that, if it shines like that, definitely is a case of being friendly. Either case, it's a normally antagonistic person being enemy, normally a monster being a kind of an enemy. So we're going to rest one more time since we've got plenty of resources. Let's see what the market has. Okay, these are actually super good, but we're not close. I don't want to spend too much renown on these, because I don't have anyone close to that rank 5, even though that's incredibly good as an item. Yeah. Actually, no. We will spend this money, because we don't need to spend money on food. And if this carries out, if we keep going with this file into Banner Saga 2, this is going to be a great item. Let's do it. Okay. Still, so that's kind of a case of like friendly things that are normally monsters being friendly, but Gret here is very much an odd case, because he's almost monstrous himself by being an outlaw. Because he lives very much on the borders of society, and throughout the entire saga, he's going around fighting revenants and ghosts and other monsters and berserkers and all kinds of these things that are dangerous to society, but he himself is hunted by society and is eventually killed by upstanding members of society. It's no good. Oh, good. We get new people. Fascist. Okay, in the meantime, Schlade, the border post, is completely empty. And so the dredge have not been coming from there, so they've been fleeing from something else. Yay! So we're at the start of this third war between dredge and humans. So this is a much larger thing. This is something that tends not to happen in saga narratives. Full-on war invasions are pretty rare. Battle in general in the Viking Age is pretty small. Obviously, there are battles in Ale Saga. You get to see the Battle of Brunanburh, where Athelstan of England wound up forcing out uh, the most of the remaining Anglo-Scandinavian forces in the Danelaw in 925. So obviously there aren't battles in the sagas. However, large-scale war like this is pretty uncommon, I would say. Not impossible, not, and certainly historically is well attested, but this kind of fantasy invasion narrative is not, certainly something on this scale is not really how saga narratives work, not really what they're interested in. So we're gonna go take a look at that, because this seems spooky. And yeah, so going on, we'll open the map in a moment here. So we've got this big army, and I'm not really worried about Ludin. He may actually die, this may be bad. I've not taken this route before, but we're gonna see. And I want to open the map here. Just to kind of show you what we're doing. So, we're going way the hell out of our way. The Schleid is up here. And then they got pushed farther north up to Stenholm. So they're going up. The Dredge usually stay all the way up here, north of where anyone civilized lives. That, well, instead they all seem to be coming out of here. This place ends up going to be really important for like the entire rest of the game. But going to Ridgehorn, this is actually a place that we'll find out later is one of the origin points. This is, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah. Yeah. So because the coming out of the Long Reach from Ridgehorn, and we're going to see what's going on there. We're going to learn eventually that the Valka, who are the actual witches of this, and we'll talk about them later because they're really interesting, but the Menders end up being partly responsible for that, and they were doing stuff in Ridgehorn that's a problem. So let's go check that out. It'll be fun. Okay, good. We're getting up to our gods down here, which means that we're going to be able to talk about the gods. Well, this is... Let's do another stupid thing and rush into battle. Hopefully this won't go badly for us. Let's take a look at Basalt. He's another... Okay. So he has the ability to force people to attack him, which makes him really quite useful, but his actual stats aren't great. He mostly exists in order to force people to attack him, and that's about it. So yeah, that being said, we're still going to replace him. uh, replace Gris with Fazold, and between these two, hopefully any strong enemies we can kind of bully into attacking our people who can actually take that beating. Yep, we're gonna bully these guys. Luckily these guys are all slingers, so that's actually really good for us. Slingers just tend to run away when they get hit, but their stats aren't very good. Their biggest problem is that they're pretty strong, and they attack from range, so they're just annoying, more than they are actually dangerous. So, with them being more annoying than actually critically dangerous, we're going to just kind of rush them and see how this goes. Still, we should be able to provoke. And maybe we put Halcon over here. Yeah, I think we put Halcon here. So, we're going to rock this guy, absolutely ruin him. And yeah, unfortunately I think Ursa is going to immediately die, just due to it being pretty unfortunate. Still, we're gonna bow, and he's not gonna do any damage to it. And that gives me a chance to, I believe, completely kill him. Luden since Luden's going before this guy, Luden's going to be able to take him out very easily. So we're going to have Halcon run up here, Sundering Impact, absolutely fuck up this guy. And off we do. Yeah, battles and descriptions of battles definitely do come up right, but they tend to be somewhat smaller scale. But in one of the sagas, genres really talks a fair bit about battle. Let's see, that is in the Banner Saga compilation, which, as I mentioned, deals with the feuds of the 13th century and Ursa's death. Yay! I definitely found it worthwhile to bring her in. That's okay. I'll just ruin his armor. And then you're going to just attack. Okay. It's no good. Yeah, in the Banner Saga compilation, which is a series of sagas, it's, what, 7 sagas? No, more than that. I don't remember the exact number. It's a lot. But that is our main source for the end of the Icelandic pre-state. And talks about a whole bunch of sagas that I found. That were written by people who witnessed the events that they're describing, unlike many sagas, which don't do that. But Iceland's too, great. And they run away. And he's gonna go down too. Yay! That makes everything harder. Yep. So as you can see, I'm playing great, but since they describe events that they witnessed, it's a really, really valuable source. And that source tells us... I do need to kill this guy. uh, that of a battle where Snorri Sturluson's brother and nephew were killed. With Snorri's approval, by the way. One of Snorri's sons was his illegitimate son was the one leading that attack, and earlier they tortured and nearly killed him. So it's turnabout is arguably fair play here. But in that saga, they describe that battle at Orlikstaðir, and that fight seemed very typical of how a fight, at least in Iceland, would work. So in that fight, one Sturla Sigvat, or was it Sigvat Sturluson and Sturla Sigvatsson, so Snorri's brother and his nephew respectively, are inside this earthen small fortification that was originally used to like trap sheep at harvest time, and they were the main. When they're there, they managed to hole up in there just on time, while I think it's Olaf Sturluson, I think is what his name. Starts with an O. I don't remember his exact name. I was on the outside attacking. So they start by throwing stones at each other. There's actually only one archer, and he misses all of his shots, and Snorri's son gets very annoyed at that. But they're throwing stones at each other and then catching them on the shields or just getting hit in the head with them and getting concussions. Eventually, though, they join battle, and this was a fairly large battle by Icelandic standards, but I think it's only like 40 people died, so really not that many, though the battle went on all day. So they're standing by the entrance and then they'll attack, and then they'll back off, and at each entrance there'll be a few people gathered up, they'll trade blows, and then they'll back off. These kinds of small battles are really common, but that's one of the clearest, and as I said, that's actually very large. By that fight standards, yeah, lasted all day, and in the end, it wasn't that there were too few people surviving, but everyone was just so exhausted. All the defenders were so exhausted by the end that they kind of just gave up and then started asking for priests if they were going to get killed. But for the most part, the defeated people would not be killed. You aren't seeing bodies littering the entire floor. Orlikstaðir is unusual in that regard. Usually people would either, when things are going bad, they'd run into the nearest church, and then they'd be safe. Or they'd all get captured, and then someone from the winning army would say, hey, I vouch for this person. You're not going to kill him, I'm going to take him, and set them free, usually because they're related. Some kind of accumulation that it would be dishonorable to let that person die, and so you claim each person and essentially are like paying ransom for them. And by vouching for them, casualties are usually in the single digits in Icelandic battles. So but that's in a feuding context. This is not some kind of war context. Those are all feuds between individuals and their kin groups. And yeah, Unfortunately, we just lost a whole lot of gold, which is bad because that's most of our tribute. Yeah. So that's battles in the Icelandic context. I can talk a little bit about them in the wider outside of that context, where they'll be a little bit bigger. Uh, yeah, once we get past this Godstone. So people are still offering sacrifices clearly to this Godstone, even though the gods themselves are known to be dead. And so this is also pretty reasonable, that there are offerings sacrificed even to a place that's not as potentially sacred without being actively sacred. Sacrifices to runestones of this sort would be uncommon in the Viking Age, but sacrifices into gods or runestones as part of a larger ritual space would in fact be very common. One example of this may be either stones that have some kind of doorway carved into them. That could be a sign of offering due to a carved doorway being an entrance into the realm of the gods. So, in this respect, well, the specifics here I think are not particularly saga-like. The Godstone, the idea of a stone carrying a depiction of a god being the focus of offerings, is pretty reasonable. And the idea of offerings in general at entrances to sacred spaces is very, very common in historical Viking Age practice. That being said, we know the gods are dead, so we're going to gather whatever we can and do like the archaeologists do. So we're going to examine as we can. So Dengler was always one of the favorites among his men, god of good fortune. They believed he brought luck, wealth, or whatever else you wish you had but couldn't get on your own. The word fortune has a lot of meanings. Yes, oddly, Leander, I actually noticed a difference in the way I play the Varl and the way I play humans. Because Rook would not do this. Rook would not steal everything that isn't bolted down. Haakon will steal everything that isn't bolted down. Very pragmatic, these Varl. So Dengler here definitely seems to have comparisons to both Baldur and Freyr. We know very little about practice around Baldur, though certainly our surviving mythological sources think very highly of him. But I think more importantly this is Freyr, comparable to Freyr as a god who brings lots of good things, but of course Freyr eventually dooms himself too, so this is kind of definitely on that trajectory. Yes, the archaeologist. I mean, all of our bog excavations in Denmark, unfortunately, there are, obviously the practice has not happened for 1,000 years, but when things were thrown into a bog, either a human or animals or other things, they were never meant to be recovered. So archaeologists doing that is in fact just stealing all the offerings 1,000-something years after they were offered. Very helpful for us to learn about them. And I certainly don't blame, like, this isn't a condemnation of archaeology. There's so much we only know because of archaeology, but someone from the period, if you told them, they'd be absolutely scandalized. Okay, and looking at this design, this is actually... I really should have screenshot that. There were runes along the outside. Not that I'm good at runes, but translating them... usually, in video games, if you see runes, it's English, but written with a different alphabet. I was curious if that's the same thing that's going on here, but I didn't. Uh, yeah. Where was I? Yeah, in video games, usually runes are very much just English written in a funny alphabet, but this game sometimes does things differently, so I wanted to check that. But regardless, stylistically, that is actually a really good runestone. That somewhat vertical stone with runes running along the edge of it, just following the curve of the stone, is very much a well-documented style. It's not the only style we see, but you do sometimes see that with then images carved in the center. So that is a case of really looking at actual iconography and then adapting it. So, cool. Okay. We're just going to... No, discipline's important. I should have punched him in the face, but that's okay. Well, so much for that. Still, we're getting close to the next point here, which will be... Huh. Weird. So we just had a dream. Dreams are fun and really, really weird. This is exactly the kind of prophetic dream that you would actually potentially see in a saga. As I mentioned with Nail Saga, with the giant walking out of the stone, pointing to a bunch of people, and then walking back into the mountain. Also, dreams with ravens, other sorts of paladins, is very much, very, very much applicable to a saga. That's definitely something that we're going to see, that you see within saga narratives quite regularly. As to how I would interpret this one, I don't know, but ravens are themselves usually a sign of war and of, well, they're carrion birds, so of death. They're more than that, though. They can also be guides, obviously, with Huyin and Moon, thought and memory. So, whole thing is generally weird. It'll be fun. Okay, so we got 2 injured people. Mover's fine, luckily. Let's promote Halcon, though, because he needs to be good. Who else can promote? Losing can promote. We're gonna use him. And these guys can also promote, but we're not going to do that. Okay. We are going to rest for a day, though, because resting is important. And yeah, well, chat, how are you guys feeling? Is there anything else like you've noticed in the game that you think we should talk about, or that you'd like me to try and speak on, or try and stammer through more accurately? Dredge. Cool. We're actually going to fight these Dredge, because otherwise things are going to get into trouble. Okay. We're in another fight. This is actually a significantly larger fight than... Oh, thank you, Myths and Legends, for the host. I appreciate that. A battle of the size of 1,000 versus 1,000 is one of the larger battles you're going to see in the Viking Age in general. Even later in the Middle Ages, getting numbers above that is not super common. Certainly numbers above 10,000 are basically unheard of. Cool. But I guess another battle that does show up in sagas is at the ending of Olaf's saga in Helga, so the saga of Saint Olafur. The battle where he actually dies. I think is comparable in size to this, because he was dealing with revolts in Norway for most of his reign. Amazingly, forcing everyone to convert to Christianity was not super popular. So he was actually dealing with revolts near the end of his reign in 1030, and he was actually killed in battle due to one of those revolts. He became canonized as a saint locally the next year. I appreciate that. But yeah, something like this, 1,000 versus 1,000, is about like the largest you're ever going to see in Scandinavia, as far as I am aware. It's very rare to see, like, they're not counting the exact numbers, so figuring out exactly how large things are is really quite difficult. But I would say that like this is going to be a very big fight. Because it's a big fight, we're going to be lunatics and rush into battle again. See if we can't keep... Oh, I can actually promote Eric. Do I want to do that? I can promote Percy instead. Decisions. Decisions are hard. I think I want to actually swap out some people here, and then Eric. We'll actually promote these guys, but I will actually give you more of that. Yeah, depends on the time. Like a 12,000 person battle in the 100 Years' War is going to be perfectly accurate. A 12,000 man battle in 12th century Scandinavia is never going to happen. Oh, actually, yeah, in 670 it's unlikely to happen. But if you go far enough back, Roman in the end of Imperial Roman times, battles were much larger again because the infrastructure was in place to support a lot more people. So battles were actually larger back then than they become later on. Is this how I want to order it? This seems... I think I actually don't like that. I think we're gonna do it that way, because Eric has the ability to reposition through friendly units, which most units don't have, so he's actually really strong. And if this is going to last a long time, we're going to be in trouble before long. But no one here can use any of these. Armor plus 1 will plus 1 break, that's super strong. 2 strength resist is good. 2 will per kill. We're going to give that to Haakon. because that lets him keep using his Sundering Strike, which means he's going to rack up kills. Or Sundering Strike, sorry. Oh gosh, I hate this map. I hate this map so much. Oh, and this... Okay, now how to predict who's gonna come first. If we do this... I think that's how we're gonna set it up. So we can't... He goes second. No. He goes second. He goes first. We got in the corner. That's great news for me. Okay. This is the best possible circumstances. So we're going to bust down this guy's everything very quickly. And then that should be enough for Falcon to basically ruin his day. Oh jeez, and yep. Ursa's dead. I need to start being better about that. Jerome? I mean, you didn't miss too much, to be honest. Cool, so if he's going there, then he can't do anything to help on. Eric's gonna help out Ursa, I think. Because you can't... Yeah. He won't be able to reach Ursa, which is good. I want to keep Ursa up, because even though she's at almost no strength, I can use her to light things on fire. So, we need to be keeping... We need to try and keep her up as much as I can, though, that being said, how I'm going to manage that is not really clear, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. If I move her next to Luden, I can slag and burn this guy, which means he's going to take fire damage. Now if he walks through that, he's going to get injured some more. Okay. This guy is summoning more allies, but we aren't super worried about that, because he's not going to make it to his next turn. Because Faisal can kill him no problem. Though. Yeah, I think that's a good call. We're going to have Mogar take on this guy's armor and ruin his day. Oh, God damn it, I screwed up there. I am annoyed at that, because I knew better. Yeah, it's really very clever that these are health and attack are the same thing. It's just also sometimes very annoying. There we go. That should do a lot of good. And since I screwed up and didn't take out... I failed to take out this guy, I actually need to use Luden to finish him off. Otherwise he's going to summon a reinforcement. And that's no good. And Ursa's dead. Again. I feel like she's going to do that a lot. She's actually not super good. But that's okay. So, let's see. But yeah, and I like helping the same as attack too. It's true. Uh, I try and plan these out as far as I can, but I also kind of just suck at remembering to continue doing that. So I actually, yeah, we're going to do this. That completely screws up. Well, he just ignored all of my attempts to do clever things. All of my clever fire, he just walked around. 10 out of 10, I am great at this. That's okay, we are still doing actually quite well, because he still has enough to do a high strength sundering impact, which completely neuters this guy. Now, we can start cleaning up, taking some of these guys out. This is where I like looting, since he can attack at 2 range, he can do diagonals, which is great. Oh good, he took some of his damage, and Halcon's almost dead. Yeah. Okay. We're good. We're still good. Somehow. Emphasis on somehow, because, yeah. It's not good by a whole lot. I seem to attack someone other than the guy who can die very easily. Sadly, I think that's how I'm going down. Yep. It's quite irritating, but luckily really not the end of the world. He's just injured, so I can bring him back whenever. But yeah, as you can see, I am clearly playing this game great. Yeah. I guess to look at like some of these designs, because there is a weird thing with these weapons. Obviously, like Faisal has a spiked club, and Mogar has a flanged mace. Neither of those are weapons that existed. So none of the guys I have here have a battering ram. This has the ability to use battering ram, and Ivor in the other group has the ability to use battering ram. But for the most part, none of the guys here have the ability to force people back like that. We're going to pull back again though, because I'm not really interested in taking on with only 4. I'm not really interested in taking on that fight, even though items would have been helpful. Still, we should get a dialogue. Oh, no. Cool, so we got past through these woods with no problem. Or in other situations, oh, never mind, we're in trouble. Okay, so we are not going to create a forest fire. That's going to go very badly for us if we do. So we're going to just kind of go business as usual. As you can see, we severely outnumber them. That being said, since we have injured people, we're going to play a little slower. And we're going to drop Arsa this time in favor of getting more. Well, more of these guys. We're going to keep him pretty well balanced because he's really quite good. And we don't want to. We're going to save Haakon since he's only at 12 strength. He still is really strong. He still gets that +2 will per kill. But since he's a little weaker, we're actually going to have him play near the end of the line. And I think we're going to go with this team. So we're actually going to swap these two and promote him. So Gris, who I just rolled in, is also going to be someone that we can... Yeah, actually, we're going to do that. We're actually going to swap him up. I'm actually going to swap him to be on top, and then Mogra, and then Gris. So that way he can get anyone's attention if I need to, and then Mogra and Gris can break someone, and then my team can clean up. That's my strategy going in. We'll see how long that lasts. And Gris is someone who can push people into the fire. Sadly, I obviously have no fire this time. Oh. Well, this was underwhelming. Well then, we're just going to line up on this. We're going to line up on this side and we're going to smush him. Well, that was Malice. Because luckily he actually does 1 strength damage. And then that gives the rest of my team room to just kind of walk in and beat up his armor. Gris does the same thing. And yeah, he breaks that. And then my team's able to just kind of come in and clean up. So this is going to be a very pleasant fight. As far as there is such a thing as pleasant fights. Sundering Impact. 2. Cool. Baby Yoda, hello. And these get will, which is great, that feeds into itself. So, I think here if we do this, he's weak enough where I'm not worried. Okay, he's going to summon allies, but that we don't care. Though I don't have very much time to take him out. I do have enough strength to do it. We're going to focus on saving our own, and then Gris luckily is able to do this. And so much for that. So this time we actually are going to chase them down, which luckily only brings in 2 more. So we're going to be able to, with this, bring in another Sundering Impact. No, we're going to move the other way. Centering Impact rank 2. And yeah, we just kind of continue business as usual. Five, 8, 10. And things continue. This fight's pretty standard. Lovely. I'm very happy that this is not ending up being a hard fight. I legitimately thought it was going to be. But my team's super fudge, so we're good. Ta-da! So we made it through. The reason I didn't set the fire earlier is that Varl are really scared of fire. This really isn't like... If this is drawing on a genuine Norse tradition, the tradition it's drawing on is actually one of more akin to berserkers than to any sort of giants, though obviously wild animals being afraid of fire is pretty normal. But there are stories of fire being a way to deal with the where was I? Of fire being a way to deal with berserkers. However, the fire needs to be consecrated. It's not very unlikely that it's the case where fire on its own will disturb a berserker, and the berserkers actually often will laugh at the idea of fire being used to hurt them. But in Banner Saga again, there's a story of a berserker at the time when Iceland converted to Christianity, so in 999, that came to a farm and was going to demand the farmer's daughter in marriage, but the first missionary, or the most successful missionary in Iceland, was there and said, you know what, we'll put this to the test. You build a fire dedicated to the gods, I'll build a fire dedicated to Christ. Whichever one stops the berserker will accept that as the superior religion. Obviously, because this is drawing on biblical tradition, the fire that came in, the berserker jumped across the fire dedicated to the Aesir, no problem, freaks out at the one dedicated to Christ, and his axe gets stuck in the ceiling, and the inhabitants of the hall all gang up on him and kill him. Works great. Every time. Cool. I think we are at the end of the chapter. Whole bunch of dredge. Things are very wrong right now. Alright, let's take a look at our heroes. As far as what caused their berserk state, that's... The theory that likes to get thrown around a lot is that it was some kind of psychedelics, but that's not accepted. Like, no one in the academic community thinks that that is a plausible explanation as to what's going on. So, instead, what's more likely is that there are certain like ritual states that can cause someone to go berserk. And that way where you just aren't feeling in due to yeah. There are definitely like in a ritual state, even without psychedelics, that can cause altered mind states, such as what you might see with a berserker. But within the saga descriptions, berserkers tend to be really lucid, and more as if it's a like mark of status as opposed to being an actual state of mind. Um, and yeah, some extent there is probably just adrenaline going on. But yeah, berserkers are usually really lucid and just assholes for the sake of it. So from that, I think really it's better to say that berserkers were a warrior status as opposed to something specific or representing a specific state of altered conscience. That being said, I really don't know. It's unclear from our literary material what's going on, and it's unclear within a religious context what's going on. So that's a place where there still is not a whole lot of consensus. Oh yeah, we just got a new item. Plus, so Saxo would not have been aware of Snorri, because Saxo is writing. Let me make sure I'm right on the date. Yeah, Saxo is writing before Snorri, so Saxo is obviously not aware of Snorri's work. That being said, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of evidence that I don't think there's any clear evidence that Snorri is explicitly aware of Saxo's work, though it certainly is possible that they were aware of each other. Okay, obviously we're getting into another fight, because we're now at Ragehorn, so we're seeing what the hell is going on here that's caused so many Dredge to die. And we've got some problems. Specifically that guy. That guy's a big problem. Look at how juicy those stats are. Oh. I think I want... No, I think I need Eric on this side. And the other 4 are on this side. They're going to push up main and hopefully not die horribly. That's the goal here. Don't get killed by this guy. If you manage that, I'll call it a success. Actually, I need to do this very differently. Swap Phasalt, swap there. Okay. He's gonna move up next to him. And he's gonna push up as quick as I can. Cool, and the Stone Guard is gonna come up. Eric's gonna come up. Rally. And there's the scary bit. Okay. What's the Stone Guard's reach? Okay. And off we go. More of this. Okay, that's good to know that he can only attack or start their attack to there. So yeah, we're actually going to move in. Small difficulty with this. This means that Haukon's not going to be able to attack, but I need to make sure that the resources here are going towards think I do that actually. Hopefully you attack. Nope, you attack the other guy. Shame. Okay, now. No worries. So the story for these is really just that there's some of my favorites. But these just happen to be some of my preferred. Story or preferred marginalia. I just happen to really like these ones, so that's what we're going for. But there's a few explanations for the snail. One of them is, yeah, snails are kind of pests, or certainly can be pests, so they're worried about that. Another reason, though, is that that's gonna hurt. Ooh, actually, he's gonna one-shot Basiled. That's not good. That's alright. Another reason that has been proposed quite recently at IMC Leeds last summer. It was proposed that was related to... how are you doing? Okay. It was proposed that was related to how that it was related to the Lollards, and the Lollards at the time when the snails first appear all over manuscripts, is around the time that the Lollards were spreading all around Europe, and we're starting to end up in some pretty high ranking places in a lot of towns. So one potential, this is not guaranteed by any means, but it is definitely a potential. Ah, crap, that still is going to be enough that he just dies. Oh wait, no it's not. So this was, a conference paper heard at IMC Leeds, and so the main argument here is that it was used as a way to ban. Talking about them in that way was or it was a way of mocking the Lollards as they got into prominence. Sorry, words are still difficult. I'll get better at this over time, I promise. So, because people didn't like them and viewed them as kind of soft and cowardly, they got the snail as an unofficial mascot animal, and so they were very much opposed to them. And when they kind of fell out of favor and prominence, then they actually almost immediately stopped appearing. And then they came back later, but there's also another possible explanation going on in ideas that in kind of a mockery of chivalric culture. This is hardly confirmed, but it is definitely an option that Oh boy. Well, there's gonna be one more casualty here, it looks like. Yeah, a mockery of Shibata culture, because the idea is that knight looks an awful lot, or a snail looks an awful lot like a knight, in that they have a very hard shell and a very soft, squishy underbelly. And so, kind of the same pastiche that you see in verse poems coming out of England in the Middle Ages, like Gawain and the Green Knight has elements of this, and something like the Tournament of Tottenham, which is truly a parody. It's a bunch of peasants holding a tournament. Just really, generally is not good. I mean, I love that poem. It's a lot of fun, but the whole idea is very much a mockery of knightly culture. And yeah, we're gonna get into another fight immediately, which sucks. Hopefully I can switch us on my wounded people. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm in a bad way here. So this is gonna be fun, question mark. Well, I don't super care about his strength. And they can't get more injured, so we're gonna bring in Bercy, we're going to bring in... You know, this is gonna be a Varl only fight. But yeah, as to the reason why I've got these particular designs on my stream banner, or on the stream, it's because I think they're just fun. There's really no greater significance than that. They're just a lot of fun to look at, to deal with, and I enjoy them, so I use them. Yeah. We'll spend the renown for this and just crank up his strength, because I need the extra health. Yeah. Let's deal with this. Oh, wait. Yep. I needed to get everyone. And I'm just going to use her for slag, for getting the slag burning, and hopefully this pays off. Okay, good. Kingkiller Chronicles are excellent, so no fault there. Nay, that's too far. Well, we're committed now. So, are you going next? You are going next. Cool, then I can bait you in by only stepping one forward. Okay, I'm okay with this. And... Huh. Okay. Let's see how we can take this guy out. This guy is... a lot of defense, and I'm not in the greatest position ever to take them on. But that's okay. We'll move up here. Just attack him on armor break. See if we can smash that. Okay, he's completely surrounded, but that's not a big deal. And here we got another guy who kind of badly needs to be. I'm just gonna do like 1 damage there and call it a day. And crap, this is a bad situation to be in. He's going to go down, absolutely certain. But let's see if I can slag up an area to weaken some of these guys. Yeah. Slag and burn. Can I hit that? I can hit that. I hit that also, yes. Okay. We'll do that. And that significantly weakens a couple dudes, which is good news. I think instead we'll actually do a malice on this guy, which will force him to attack me, which is good, and you'll hit him on the armor, and that's bad. Unfortunately, with him not being able to reach, we're just slow on the uptick on getting some of that armor breaking. Hopefully he gets one more turn so I can bust this guy's armor to high health. There we go. Okay. We're rolling now, very slowly. Sunring Impact should bust this. Percent to hit, still strength damage +1. A guaranteed hit is nice, but the rest of this isn't amazing. Still, getting his strength down is going to be helpful. And yeah, Grace goes down. So we're going to have to play quite slow here. We are actually going to slag and burn again, I think. I think that is by far my strongest play. Two, three, four, 5. That's good. Because it will leave 2 of these to be on fire. And yeah, so we do this, and I'm just going to slowly chip down this guy's armor, because unfortunately, very little I can do about that. Okay, we are finally starting to roll here, because I can do this for 5 armor break these guys' armor more. And now, finally, we're starting to be able to do things. Sunring Impact, only level 1, still is a good choice. And he takes 2 strength, which is enough to make him effective, finally. So, by running in here, we're going to use the Tempest, take out both of these guys so we can start playing the game again. Okay, we are in a decent situation now, finally. So, we survived. Finally. Phew. So, yeah, the person we just found is a bender. Why they're in Ragehorn, we don't know, but these are kind of the Valka, or Menders, are the wielders of actual magic. Unlike what Ersa uses, the Valka can actually do real magic, and in gameplay, their main benefit is that they can repair my armor for me. I know, it's great. Ersa got to play the game. Um, I need rest though. Too many of my people are injured, so only until we're ready for the fight. I just need. I knocked him out, which sucks because he isn't actually one of my strongest units. But we're gonna focus on getting ready, because we need to rest. I think we need to rest one more time. How's everyone doing? Yeah, I'll take that. Those are all slightly injured, but not injured enough to be really devastating. So we're gonna take that, and we are going to push forward and get out of here. This fight sucks. This is the end of the chapter, and once we get the chapter break and I get a chance to save, this will be the end of the stream. So Faisal's injured slightly. Percy we're going to take out because he's weaker than Gunolf by every measure. But I think we're actually going to use Eric. No, we will use. I think we're going to trust on Halcon to do the damage, and we're going to use Eric as a good backup. We're going to move Ursa up now so she can slide. She can just kind of burn the ground in front of us as we're going, which will be fine. And Eric can catch up and keep everyone's morale up. I think that's good enough. So let me check what 2 strength damage leaves 3 pulls, armor break plus. Okay, so I actually want to promote her because that extra armor break is going to be quite huge. And we're going to let her do more damage and hopefully keep her alive a little bit longer. Keeping her alive would be really helpful. Still, how's this fight? So we've got one scary person. But we can get close enough to him, I think. 1, 2... I hope. I really hope I can get close enough to him. Because I can force him. He can't one-shot Basil's. So... well, this is gonna be tricky. Burning him down is my most important goal. If I can do that, then everyone else is going to be pretty okay. Yeah, I guess this is how we'll do it. Okay, so Faisal can't make it, but I can still force him to the only person he can attack. He goes first, so I can just kind of step one forward, bait him in, and Faisal is going to be okay at doing that. And now we can completely bust down his armor, which is really huge. Already. So we're going to leave that at 2. And they get burned down. They leave 1 coal. And I think Ursa dies now. She got 1 attack off. Oh, nope, she's good. We good. I can use Eric to defend her. Kind of force him off. So Halcon could just murder this guy, which would be fun. I think that's probably my best bet, because he's got enough armor to tank at least one thing of it, one attack. And this guy being dead would be really nice. Huh. Since Basil goes before him and Mogra goes before him, we want to focus on this guy. This guy's at almost no armor, which is great news for me. But my whole team is starting to look a little bit flimsy. Okay, he's summoning an ally, that's no big deal. Ursa goes next, and we are going to actually do the exact same thing, even though this is absolutely going to get her killed. Next turn, she still is going to get a play. She got to play the game for a whole 2 turns, so we're going to take it. Now she's dead. I think this Basil gets to go before. Now, let's see what my best bet here is. I think I'm going to step forward. How to do this? We've got plenty of people who can still take on this guy, so cool. Basil takes him out. I think that's my play. Ah, crap. Uh, so I'm gonna have to improvise a bit because Mogar, like, this dredge can no longer get to, or Basil can no longer get to this dredge, so Mogar's gonna have to do it instead. That's not a problem, it just slows me down a little bit. Because the last thing I want is to have them end up upgrading on me. Now then, we're actually gonna bash these guys in through the fire. And through that, so he's down to literally no oomph. Which is great for me, because I can just do a single Sundering Impact to get the splash damage. And he ran through the fire too. My plan is flawless. Let's see. What else can I talk about here? I think I've said most of the thoughts I have so far, but I think it's clear to say that there are some ways in which this is quite a bit like a saga, but there's also a lot of ways in which this is really more focused on fantasy and fantasy tropes than it is on anything that would actually resemble one of the Icelandic sagas. And I think Risko's gone again. Cool. Fun game. Please run away through the thing. Yeah. So yeah, while we're finishing up here, I guess, what are your thoughts on what I said at the start of the stream for the three of you that are left? I said at the beginning, like, the goal is to see, like, how much like a saga this is. And I'm curious what your thoughts are, if you have any, with the stories I've told in this, and seeing a little bit more of the game. How well do you think that fits into a genre of, or the game so far fits into the kind of genres of sometimes epic, but sometimes also very mundane and focused on individuals, focused on the dealings of seemingly ordinary people. So, where do you think this fits in that? Do you like how the game is trying to walk that balance, or do you think it's successful in that in any way, shape, or form? To start off with, I guess my thoughts on this is that in some ways this does a really good job uh, of trying to be like a saga, of the kinds of information that it's interested in telling is really important. Um, it does its focus correctly to focus on the relation between these characters, but also their struggles in this very harsh world. And so, right now, they're dealing far more with the kinds of things you might see in an outlaw saga or one of the Fortnite saga, where they're going out, they're having this adventure, they're having a fight, they're finding something, and then they move on to the next place. This structure seems kind of like a saga, but in its core, I think this game, I think, ultimately fails at the kind of mode of storytelling the saga does in these early chapters, mostly because the conflict is entirely against this other. Even the cases with like Sibylla the Demon Cow and some of those more fights against monsters, there's this underlying conflict between people who are fundamentally people. At this point in the game, the Dredge are not humanized or are completely alien. They're just waves and waves of enemies, cannon fodder. I think that's something that the saga, this game ultimately fails at being a saga because of its conflict. When the writing is at its best, like the conflict between Luden and Halcon, it works great. And in Banner Saga 2, we'll see things that work a lot better, and it humanizes or complicates the narrative about the Dredge quite dramatically. But I think at least these first third of the game kind of struggles at being a saga. It focuses too much on these fantasy, this big sweeping epic, the start of the end of the world narrative that puts it in a much more mythological realm than in a sagaic realm. Avon, as you can see, is a very well-adjusted person that has reasonable reactions to information. And yeah, we're going to see how Grofheim is. I'm sure it's fine. There's no problem.
Dread grips me as we approach Grofheim. None of us expected to see a city unscathed. But what we find steals the very breath from my lungs.
Grofheim's fine. It's definitely not completely burnt to the ground. And there we go. This is where we will end the stream. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming. For those of you who are still hanging out and joining me and who stuck around for all 3 hours, I appreciate that a lot. One more question before we go. Do you guys want me to keep going with this, or do you want me to do something else? I'm certainly willing to keep going with this. I like this game a lot. But we can certainly also like try to make Dark Souls work again, see if not having people on a call will make that more stable. Or we can do something completely different. I've got Age of Empires 2 remastered ready to go. We could do one of the historical battles from that. So yeah, what do you guys think? Between those three options, more Banner Saga, Dark Souls, or Age of Empires 2? The 5 of you who are in here get to decide what I do next. Okay, I'm seeing some comments saying Dark Souls. So Kane and Bodrum, I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to see if we can make that work. Because yeah, I do have plenty of thoughts about Dark Souls, and it's yeah. And we can always come back. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm streaming, going to try and stream once to twice a week. So there's plenty of time to do all of the above. But yeah, I think that with we'll try and do Dark Souls next time, and if that doesn't work, we'll keep going with this. Otherwise, we're going to keep going. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to have Dark Souls going on. Thank you, King, for the follow, by the way. And yeah, also, since this is where we end the stream, please do follow me on Twitter if you want to be notified when the next stream is going to happen. Yeah, with Dark Souls, it's going to be a lot more general, looking at how the game adapts the Middle Ages more broadly and how it's kind of pastiche cobbles together this fantasy Middle Ages. I think it does that really, really well and becomes a good baseline to talk about other games. So that's kind of the goal for that stream. So yeah, that stream's going to be on Saturday, 5 p.m. GMT, so same time as these other streams have been, just different day. We're going to try and do a weekend so the Americans can join us, hopefully. But yeah, so that's where we end. Make sure you follow me on Twitter to be notified with future scheduling, thoughts, comments, etc. And this VOD will be on YouTube in a couple of days, youtube.com/Ludo History. Subscribe there, you also get the VODs. And in the future, I may or may not be doing more heavily produced content in that. Yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed, and thank you for sticking around, and I will see you next time.